Good news, Carolina Hurricanes fans. The team is officially back. Well, sort of, somewhat, kind of back. But hey, at least we're getting some practices finally, and the NHL is ever so much closer from being fully back from the Four Nations break.
You're Locked On Hurricanes, your daily podcast on the Carolina Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to a Wednesday edition of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you to the Everydayer for making this your first listen of the day, 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, talking everything about your Carolina Hurricanes. I'm your host, Zach Martin. I'm the credentialed Carolina Hurricanes beat writer over at the Hawkers. Also do some AHL coverage over at the Calder Times. I am the co-host of the Search Cast, which is a weekly Carolina Hurricanes podcast, along with all my duties here at Locked On Hurricanes. Got a wonderful Wednesday episode of the pod as we get to talk about how the team is officially back on the ice for the first of 4 practices starting on Tuesday. Do have some injury and roster updates as there has been a recent recall and an injury update with a guy coming back to the lineup for the first time since December 31st. And at the very end of the show, we get to hear from Rod Brind'Amour in his first post-game, or I guess post-practice press conference during the Four Nations break. So the team's officially back for the most part. I mean, you're still waiting for Seth Jarvis and Jacob DeSlavin to come back from the Four Nations face-off, but then also, of course, you got Sebastian Aho and Mikko Rantanen probably getting some very much needed time off since the fact that they just played on Monday. I would not be surprised if Rod and the Canes gave them, Tuesday off, maybe Wednesday, depending on how that goes. But, because, those guys just were, in Montreal and also in Boston over the last few days doing the Four Nations face-off. So they probably are going to get the break that are kind of, wanting to have since the rest of the team has been mostly off for the most part. So most of the team for the, was mainly back on the ice for Tuesday as, per Walt Ruff, as always, the Hurricanes team reporter. They were back on the ice Tuesday. It was the first of what is going to be 4 practices leading up to their Saturday return to game action where they take on the Toronto Maple Leafs in Toronto. Obviously, Slavin and Seth Jarvis not going to be there, at the practice. And of course, like I said, the most likely you're going to get Aho and Rantanen at least getting Tuesday off, maybe coming back Wednesday, but who knows? But, those guys definitely deserve some time off after being gone and playing in the Four Nations face-off. But the lines, and I'm putting them in air quotes, is Taylor Hall with Kotkaniemi and Blake. Then you got Andrei Svechnikov along with the Jordans of Stahl and Martinook. And then here on the fourth line, Eric Robinson, Tyson Jost, and Jack Roslovic. And then, of course, on defense, you got Riley Stillman, Brent Burns, Orlov Chatfield, Gostisbehere Walker, and Anderson Kochetkov. So, obviously, we're going to talk about the roster updates in segment 2. But, yes, you did hear that right. Tyson Jost is centering the fourth line between Robinson and Roslovic, and Riley Stillman is with Brent Burns on that top defensive pair. Of course, like I said, it's their first practice. Obviously, they only have 3 forward lines. They don't really want to call anyone else up because since that their whole first line is technically either coming back from Four Nations or is still at the Four Nations, and their number 1 defenseman is still there as well. But you get a kind of idea what the lines, at least the rest of the forward core is probably going to look like going into, the game on Saturday. Of course, we'll kind of talk about that as we do a day ahead preview on Friday before the team gets to play on Saturday. But you're kind of seeing what the forward lines might possibly look like. And of course, you already know what the defense is going to be because we all know it's Jacob Slavin with Burns, and Riley Stillman's probably going to be the 7th defenseman. Of course, you really can't tell with goaltending because, as Walt Ruff puts it, don't take who's in the starters crease on a practice day when there's a non-game day. It doesn't really matter. Plus, we're still like days off from them being back, but at least you kind of get an indication, okay, slowly but surely we are getting Hurricanes hockey back for the most part. Like I said, it's the first of 4 practices. at least you're seeing guys back on the ice. You're getting the normal hockey noises back. You're seeing, all the guys who weren't on the Four Nations rosters are now kind of getting amped up and getting ready to get back. And I know, a lot of people were excited for Four Nations. I know I was somewhere kind of like, okay, it is what it is. I'm just ready for the Canes hockey to be back. So you're getting this nice little mix of, okay, we still have the Four Nations. They just played, their last round robins on Monday. Most of the teams back for Tuesday to practice. They're going to practice on Wednesday as well. But then you got USA, Canada in the Four Nations face-off final on Thursday. Then you're going to have that Friday, probably a travel day more than anything else. And then you got the Hurricanes back on Saturday against the Toronto Maple Leafs. And then that's going to be the real question is like what – obviously they're probably going to have Jarvis and Slavin probably meet the team in Toronto because they're going to be in Boston Thursday night. I guess it wouldn't make sense for them to go from Boston back to Carolina and then go right to Toronto with the fact that they play Saturday after playing on Thursday night. So most likely you're going to have those two guys probably meet the rest of the team in Toronto, all things considered, because it's a quick flight from Boston, because I doubt they're going to make them jump on a plane right after playing a Four Nations final and then come back Friday to leave the same day. So, but at least it's kind of good for the most part while you're still waiting for 2-year guys who are still at Four Nations that, we're getting that flow back. We're like, okay, now we're talking not just Four Nations. Now we're talking actual Carolina Hurricanes news. And it's exciting. Like I said, I like Four Nations, and a lot of the people liked Four Nations as well. But honestly, I'm so ready for Canes hockey to be back because while it's fun talking about international, you're just talking about maybe 4 guys on 3 different teams. Now, their teams are doing it, how those guys individually are doing it for their certain nations. But when you're talking just strictly the Carolina Hurricanes, I think this is where it's the most exciting for the fact that, okay, you got that break for, Mikko Rantanen to kind of like, kind of get settled in because he just basically got traded from Colorado, comes into right into Carolina, couple road games, finally gets, into Raleigh, and it's just kind of hectic for him. Now you get this nice little break where it's like, okay, he gets to focus on international play for a little bit. With Finland being done early, they have this whole week to kind of integrate back into the Canes and stuff like that. And now we're getting back to Canes hockey. So it's just exciting for the fact that now it's like, yes, you have Four Nations, still got 1 game left, but now it's like now the focus and the shift is to what's this stretch run going to be like for the Hurricanes. So you're talking 26 regular season games left before they start the playoffs. Practices are restarting back up. You got the trade deadline you got like 3 weeks until the trade deadline because right now, as of this, it's February 19th on a Wednesday. You are very close to March 7th with this trade deadline. So you got about 2, maybe 3 weeks left before it's like, okay, what's the roster going to look like? Because the Hurricanes are trying to figure out what's next. And nipping this in the bud, the Hurricanes are not going to trade Mikko Rantanen. That subject is not going to be talked about. We're going to start worrying about trade deadline. There is no reason why the Hurricanes gave up Nietzsche's injury and 3 draft picks to have Mikko Rantanen for a few weeks with a huge Four Nations break in the middle of that to give him a handful of games. Like he hasn't even played 10 games with the Canes yet. Like that is, I don't know why this narrative keeps popping up. It's not going to happen. So what's going to happen for the Hurricanes is they're going to look for a lot of depth guys that they could probably add in to probably bolster the bottom 6, or they're going to go find a way to go get a second line center that's not going to be having to flip a Mikko Rantanen. They're going to go, they have stuff. They probably have ideas. We all know Eric Tulsky's still trying and stuff like that. You did hear him recently that, on the latest Storm Report with Walt Ruff, he, when they were in Minnesota, he was on his laptop. Yeah, he was looking at their data and just looking at, what are the metrics are saying. But he's got tricks up his sleeve. He's probably got potential moves that they're kind of working on too. And you're going to hear me talk about more of certain guys I'm looking. I would hope the Hurricanes would bring. I've also written about on the Hockey Writers. Just kind of here's a couple names I've been kind of thinking about. But as we start getting closer to the deadline, I'll do a little bit more of a dive into them. But hey, Morgan Geekie, Ryan Donato would not be upset if you get guys like that. But, those are episodes when we get closer to the deadline. But as of right now, though, you are seeing that the guys are slowly integrating back into, all right, You got 26 games left before the playoffs. Let's start getting ready for Saturday against Toronto. Now worry about this stretch run, because now you're worried about playoff seedings of you want to distance yourself from a wild card. You got the Devils who are right there. You kind of want to get home ice advantage for the first round. And hey, you're only 10 points back of Washington. There's still a possibility that if you get hot at the right time, who knows? Maybe there's a talk of a Metro Division title somewhere in there. But the good thing is the guys are back for the most part. Your whole first line is not there, still not there yet, and your number one defenseman. But now you're kind of seeing, okay, we're almost getting back into that routine, which is very nice to see. Now, like I said, we do have some injury and roster updates, because you did hear a couple guys that I did mention, and you're like, oh, which is Tyson Jost and Riley Stillman. So we'll talk about them here in a second on a Wednesday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. Get snacking and get cracking with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. Welcome back to segment 2 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. And like I said, we do have some injury updates and roster as well. And for the fact that, you do have Riley Stillman that was called up earlier Tuesday morning back to Carolina. So it's good to see, Riley Stillman's back after the Hurricanes sent him down to give him some playing time with the Chicago Wolves, since the AHL is still playing while the AHL guys are on their break. But also, Rod Brind'Amour did say that Tyson Jost will be most likely available on Saturday against Toronto, and this is the first time this will be his first game back since he suffered lower body injury against the Columbus Blue Jackets, and he has not played since December 31st. So it's good to see that you got Tyson Jost back, and that's something that's really, really exciting if you're Carolina Hurricanes fans, is the fact that now, before he got hurt, he was actually playing pretty well for the Canes, and now they've had to, kind of work their way into, having to figure out their fourth line and, all this other stuff. So it's really cool to see that you're kind of getting this idea of like, all right, we're slowly working our way back in, and just you have a guy that you're kind of relying on earlier this season who's been out for a bit, so you've had to dip into the well of guys in Chicago. Now, Jost did play 16 games for the Hurricanes, did have 2 goals, was a +3. So all things considered, like I said, he was playing some decent hockey. But of course, you had to get Ryan Suzuki up at some point. You've had Jaska play the fourth line center. You've had Jack Roslovic play fourth line center. Just Barry Kotkaniemi. So you've had a couple of times. So you've had to kind of rotate guys in and out of the lineup, kind of figure out that fourth line. And that's the thing when you look at the roster, when you hear the lines, are okay, well, where's Juha Jaska? Because he wasn't mentioned in that. Of course, he's still in Chicago with the Wolves because he was also sent back down to get some more playing time as well. And, the fact that the Hurricanes and the Jost is back, maybe like, okay, let's just have Jaska stay down there in Chicago, have the fourth line center that we were, originally going to have for the most part. Now he's officially back. And like I said, you have Riley Stillman also up as well, after a recall. And that's just because of him being your 7th defenseman. And you just needed a 6th guy for right now, since, Jacob Slavin's still technically with Team USA for 4 Nations. But at least you're seeing that, okay, you got your 7th defenseman back from Chicago. Now you got your fourth line center that you had for the good part of, the first half of the season in Tyson Jost before he got injured against Columbus, on the 30th. So, like I said, he's only got 2 points. There are 2 goals. And, Jaska did have 4 points, all assists in 13 games. But at least you're, and I thought Jaska played well. I thought Jaska was a very good, replacement, someone that you really needed for the most part. But, and nothing against the guy. But when you're talking about Juha Jaska, who's kind of in his first year in North America, you're kind of getting him, ready to go. Like I said, he played well. He played well for the Hurricanes in the time that he has. But when you get a guy like Tyson Jost back, who you definitely need as a bona fide center that you really could rely on, that's not a bad place to be for the Carolina Hurricanes. And now you got him back in the lineup to be your 4C. So all things considered, it's a nice little upgrade for the Canes at the right time when they definitely need someone, and a guy like Tyson Jost. And the thing that really helps too is that you're talking about a guy, it's a body that has, for the most part, produced for the Canes, all things considered. And, it's, you're looking at a guy a pretty decent faceoff percentage for the Canes so far this year, 49.2%. That's right around the normal area for the rest of the center group. So it's good to have Tyson Jost back. Like I said, I did like how Jaska played, but Tyson Jost has got a little more NHL experience. You know what you're looking for in a guy like him. And he's, like I said, he was playing well before he got hurt. It stinks that he got hurt when he did, but he's back. And now you're looking at a fourth line that's probably going to be Robinson and Roslovic with Tyson Jost in the middle. Honestly, not bad, because honestly, not really bad at all when you have that group of guys together, where you got two speedsters on a side and a guy who's pretty good at the faceoff dot in Jost. Like, because you have just Barry Kotkaniemi's over 50%. Obviously, Jordan Staal is too. So you're getting a guy on your fourth line who's going to win you a lot more faceoffs, which you definitely need, since with the trade of Jack Drury, he's no longer there. And, Jaska can only do so much as, when it comes to face-offs, and same for Roslovic and stuff like that. So you got a fourth-line center who's going to win you some face-offs. So that's, like I said, that's a nice addition to get Tyson Jost back at the right time. And like I said, with roster updates, you got Riley Stillman back up. You have a solid, seventh defenseman who's, been there and done that in the NHL as well, in case, some guy's not feeling good, or, not going to win, someone's hurt, hopefully it doesn't happen. But, you have to figure out, all right, do you want Ty Smith up or do you want Riley Stillman up? And Riley Stillman has, shown why he should be the seventh defenseman for the Carolina Hurricanes. So, like I said, you'll hear more all about this in segment 3 when this is Rod Brind'Amour, but at least we're getting a good indication of, okay, you're getting the necessary bodies that you've been waiting for to get back. Of course, you have Anderson in goal with Kochekov. They've been back for a little bit now together, especially Anderson. And, you're looking at a roster that's, there's still going to be some tweaks. I would not be surprised if we see some moves happen, towards the trade deadline with Eric Tulsky and, of course, with, Darren York and the rest of the staff. But you're seeing the roster that the Hurricanes were really going to hopefully rely on for the good part of the season. Like I said, again, getting Jost back right after the Four Nations break to start this little run before you get to the March 7th deadline. Not a bad spot to be in for the Hurricanes, especially when you're looking for guys who can win faceoffs in certain situations like that, where you get guys in 49, 50, 52%, stuff like that. So with Jost being right around that area of where you need it, especially for guys who's going to be your fourth line center, that's going to be behind a Jordan Staal, behind the Barry Kotkaniemi, and behind a Sebastian Aho. Not a bad place to be in. Of course, he is a left shot center, so you're still short on that right hand center that you really need. But hey, like I said, you got the deadline coming up. You could figure out a way to get yourself a right-handed shot, center. But now you could potentially have Tyson Jost as your extra forward as well, in case you still need that extra forward. Tyson Jost would not be a bad guy to have on your roster if he's your your 13th forward that you really need. So, like I said, it's not a needle mover in any way of like, oh, this is fantastic. But hey, this is still a good sign for the Hurricanes that, guys who've been hurt are slowly coming back into the roster as well. So getting a guy like Jost back, like I said, it's not a needle mover, but hey, that's an extra body you would love to have. A guy who's got a really good faceoff percentage right now, like I said, was playing good for the Hurricanes for the most part before he got injured. So, hey, you just picked up an extra body that could really help you in terms of depth purposes until we get this little stretch run going until we get to that deadline on March 7th. Now, talking about Rod Brind'Amour, and of course, with the updates we're going to get from him, In segment 3, we are going to listen to the press conference for Rod's first time back with media since they've had their Four Nations break. So stick around as we'll listen to that and give my thoughts on that press conference here in a second on a Wednesday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Welcome back to segment 3 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. Like I said, Rod Brind'Amour did meet with media for the first time after practice on Tuesday. So without further ado, let's jump into that with Rod right now.
Any time off for the coach used?
Yeah, no, it's good. Get a mental refresher and get a little time with the young one, and now we're right back at it.
What are your thoughts on the Four Nations, Rod?
Yeah.
How about the intensity of it?
Yeah, it's good.
A little bit, or
No. I mean, I remember back when the World Cup was on. I mean, it's the same thing. I mean, it was just like that. I mean, it was great hockey. Fun to watch and be exciting final game. I think.
Who do you think's going to come out ahead?
No idea. Someone from North America is going to win it. That's right. It's going to be a good game, and maybe play that game 100 times, it's probably 50-50, so we'll see.
As a coach, would you be a little nervous seeing
Yeah.
your guys with 3 fights in 9 seconds?
Yeah,
stopping
well,
again, just to make a
honestly,
point like that?
maybe not that, but just nervous when you're watching your players play half the game, and, that gets you a little antsy, but excited for them at the same time.
As you've seen these Four Nation games, progress and everything, would you like to have coached in one of these?
Yeah, I mean, it's an all-star game that counts, I mean, that's what it is. So it'd be very exciting to be around that talent. I mean, it always is, at those kind of events. But when these ones where they're playing for real, it's special.
We hear so often from you during the season that you take things one day at a time, every day. But now that you've had a 9-day break of activities, did you take that time to assess all that's transpired, or did you just leave it at February 8th and now you pick it back up?
Yeah, I don't know. Good question. I mean, I think we left it and then try to, obviously do some work over the break, but it's just you want to pick up now as if nothing's changed. Yeah, I don't think you certainly don't want to pause in the way you're playing and think you need time to get going, or like a training camp. No, we got to get right back on it, and that's kind of the approach we're trying to take.
How do you use this practice time where the Four Nations is still going on for a couple of days? You're obviously missing a couple of key guys, but you can't really practice with the full team and do things as you do in a game.
Well, that's the hard part of it. You're missing. We're missing 4 key guys today, so hopefully we get a couple back as this trickles on. But no, it's just getting everybody up to speed on their conditioning again, and remembering how we got to do things. I mean, that's basically what we're doing here these days.
Going back to the injury thing, I guess Seth was a scratch the other night, maybe tomorrow night.
Yeah.
So Thursday night. So.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's disappointing for him. I mean, I thought he actually played really well. But that's what happens when you come to these things. I mean, there's 22 or however many guys they have that everyone could play. And, he's the young one on the totem pole too. So then we get how that works.
At the same time, Slavin's played awfully well for the Americans.
Yeah, he's been
lights
out.
Kind of a showcase for him.
I think it's great for him. Nothing we don't know already, but clearly they're using him the way they're using him is what you have to do against those top guys.
Anything on Carrier?
No, he's long ways away. So
You think he's done for the year or not?
I hope not. I mean, hopefully we can use him at some point, but he's definitely long term.
26 games in 52 days to finish out the regular season. Now, when you think about what you'd like to see more of from the group, felt like consistency was a key word leading up to this. Is that
it always is. I mean, it always is. You want to always, every night, give yourself a chance to win. And, I think that's kind of been our calling card over the years, and like to maintain that. And if we can, obviously there's areas of our game we got to get better at. I don't know if there's one part of it that I'm like, no, that's right on. So that kind of gives you good and bad vibes, like good that we have room to grow. But, got to find it, right? So that's what the challenge is going to be.
Is there someone you were maybe most worried about in terms of doing little work or a lot of work in the gym, as you kind of said, hey, make sure you do that gym time?
I don't know. I mean, I know there's certain guys you don't ever have to worry about, but I'm sure there's a couple guys a little red-faced there today, but that's what the 4 days are for, here to get back.
You had your forwards today in red, white, and blue. Any symbolism to that or not?
No, actually. Just the way we with only 3 lines going, that's the only colors we have available. So, but interesting catch there, Chip. Yeah.
Tyson's been practicing with you guys for a couple more practices now. Do you think he could be ready for Saturday?
I'm hoping so. So that'll be, I think, kind of a game time, but he's definitely right there. If not, that game's certainly around the corner.
Big thank you to Rod Brind'Amour of the Carolina Hurricanes, as always, for that. And, yeah, you heard it from the coach himself, talking about the fact that, Tyson Jost is going to most likely be ready to go on Saturday. And, also talking about Seth Jarvis, and I've been mentioning it, the last, couple episodes, is the fact that it just stinks that, he's just getting healthy scratched. And, he feels it for him, the fact that, he wanted to be there and, contribute more. Yeah, he played in the first 2 games, but, I mean, hey, what can you do? That's just the unfortunate part. And, Rod said it best. Is, you're talking about, a roster where you need, every guy's really, really good. And, just his turn in the rotation to get taken out. And, he's also the youngest guy there. So it was bound to happen that he might be sat. And that's the case. But, he did mention Jacob Slavin, that he's, it's no surprise how good Jacob Slavin's been. I mean, at this point, we all know as Carolina Hurricanes fans how good Jacob Slavin is, and it's just good. It's fantastic that he's finally getting his flowers from the hockey world. The fact that, wow, Jacob Slavin's really good. Yeah. We've been saying that for a long time. Thank you for catching up to the party. That's been Jacob Slavin. But, it's fun to see how he's been doing. Like I said, hopefully we get Seth for Thursday night for hopefully a second rematch, for the final. But, did get a little bit of everything. Carrier still a long way away, which is unfortunate, but what can you do? And, with the practice, you can only do so much when you got 3 forward lines when you're, like I said, when your entire first line is either just getting back or still at the Four Nations face-off. But it's just nice to hear when you do get some updates from the coach. And the question that I really liked from Walt Ruff is, like, when he asked Rod about, do you just leave the season where it's out there on February 8th, or, have you been kind of slowly working on it, or do you pick it back up now starting on Tuesday? And it's interesting hearing from Rod of, like, yeah, you kind of want to, take a little bit of a break, maybe, but you still want to stay a little bit focused and get ready for it. And now you're back at first practice, now you're getting conditioning ramped back up. Because, like I said, you got 4 practices this week between Tuesday and the game on Saturday against Toronto. So now you're slowly getting the whole team back into conditioning shape, which, with the guys on vacation, they, did what Bill Bernstein asked them to do. Like, hey, still do your workout routines and, eating right and all that stuff. Cause yeah, it's a break, but you still got hockey games to come back to. But, the guys are going to be ready to go. They're going to be fired up because now it's like, it's go time. You got 26 games starting on Saturday until you get to the end of the regular season before the playoffs start. So it's definitely going to be a hit the ground running for the Carolina Hurricanes. But I did like that question of, like, do you kind of leave it on the 8th, or have you slowly been kind of looking at it, but now it's, since the team's back, is it time to ramp up? And just hearing from Rod saying, like, yeah, you kind of want to leave it a little bit, but also you still want to, focus on things that need to be done and, kind of prepare yourself for when the team is eventually back on the ice together. So, yeah, it's when you hear certain coaches talk about how do you stay prepared, but also, shut your brain off a little bit, kind of take a break, because you need it too, because it's a long season for hockey, because you're talking October all the way through April, and that's just regular season. And you're talking June, at least end of June, when you're, mentioning the playoffs, and then you got the draft that's coming up really quick, and then you got free agency that kicks off July 1st. It's a lot going on. But it's just good to hear Rod once again for the first time since the Four Nations break, because you now know that hockey is officially somewhat kind of sort of back. But it's just nice we're now going to get back into the routines of hearing from Rod Brind'Amour a lot more, hearing from the guys as well, as now we're almost done with Four Nations and it's back to Carolina Hurricanes hockey. So I don't know about you guys, but I am definitely excited. I think everyone else is excited too. The fact that Hurricanes hockey is so close to being back for the rest of the regular season and then getting ready for the playoffs. But, guys, that will be a Wednesday episode of Locked On Hurricanes. Thank you for making your first listen of the day. For your second listen, why don't you go check out Locked On Fantasy Hockey. Become a fantasy hockey expert and get the edge over your league mates with daily tips for steal and flip. Find Locked On Fantasy Hockey on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you want to keep up with me, I'm at OneTrueZach on X. The podcast is LO_Hurricanes. I am also on Blue Sky at the Zachary Martin. I do have link trees in both my bios where you can check out all my articles at the Hockey Writers, or just go to thehockeywriters.com. If you want to check out my AHL coverage, well, it's at thecaldertime.com. My other podcast is the Surgecast on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. It's just simply the Surgecast. For this show, well, like I said, it's Locked On Hurricanes on X. We're also on Spotify, Google, Apple, iHeartRadio. Leave a 5-star rating and review because I might just read it on the show just by looking up Locked On Hurricanes. For YouTube, well, Locked On Hurricanes. Subscribe. Hit the bell notifications so you don't miss a show. Leave a thumbs up to let me know if you like the show as well. Share with all our Kings to become everydayers just like you. I hope everyone enjoyed this Wednesday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Hope you enjoy your Wednesday in the eve of the Four Nations Championship, which will be on Thursday. But until next time, as always, let's go Canes.